I'm so excited to be with you guys tonight. Our topic tonight is tragic love. We're talking about the tragic love template, which is extremely common among starseeds and awakening world healers. So, we're going to be talking about tragic love, what that looks like, and how to work through that, how to dismantle that template from an energetic perspective. And you guys, I'm very excited to be announcing that I have an Oracle card deck coming out this year. These are my cards. So we're doing a card pull, and I've already pulled the card for today, and I'm going to be sharing the card in the message with you all. Our card for today is Tragic Love, and it is showing up a little bit orange, but this is actually a root chakra card. So this is red, okay? And the message on this card reads as follows. The number is the number 7, and the title is Tragic Love, okay? So we're going to get into it, you guys. Tragic love. Early childhood abandonment, rejection, manipulation, etc. trains the brain to associate love with toxicity as an adult. Residual energies attract more of the same until the trauma is resolved. This includes family, friends, and romance. Our keywords are revelation, toxic patterns, and error code deletion. Okay, revelation, toxic patterns, and error code deletion. And I'm going to share the message that will be in the booklet, you guys. Again, this is from my 7 Centers of Attraction Oracle card deck, which is coming out a little bit later this year, but I'm going to be sharing a lot of the cards with you guys in the meantime. And this is the message on the card. Are you programmed, or the message in the booklet, are you programmed for tragic love? Early childhood abandonment, rejection, manipulation, etc. train the brain to associate love with toxicity as an adult. Residual energies from these events attract more of the same scenarios until the trauma is fully resolved, playing out in love relationships of all kinds, family, friends, and romance. We're naturally attracted to people who feel like home, even if home was emotionally unsafe. The subconscious mind recreates old problems in an attempt to fix the past, saying, "This time I will make them love me, accept me, or admit the truth. This time they will save me, or this time I will save them. This time will be different." It never works. This card reveals that you or someone close to you is repeating tragic, toxic patterns learned young. Move into a new era of relationships by turning to face the truth. How do your adult relationships mirror the relationships within your family of origin? Okay, and again, those keywords were revelation, toxic patterns, and error code deletion. Okay, and there are some journal prompts that go along with this card, so we'll be discussing the journal prompts today as well. Um, and I want to share with you guys a personal story that relates to this card, or that inspired this card. Greetings, Goddess. Hey, Zena Electra. Hunter Sargent said, "My brother likes you." Hey, Hunter Sargent, tell your brother I said hello. You guys, the number for this card is number 7. And the number 7 represents transformation, okay? Transformation and transmutation, allegory, big picture, movement, things of that nature, okay? So this very much suits this card. So when I post this video, I'm going to link it to a short. And in that short, I am talking about my own story of tragic love. Okay. And guys, this is a very, very timely message, because right now we are in the last of the big shed from the year of the snake. And the planetary alignments that we have right now as we go into the new year, the real 2026, is are very, very supportive of dismantling these templates, these deeply rooted templates that we have concerning love. Okay. So if you have a tragic love template, you may find that you are often choosing to enter relationships that deep in your heart you know are never going to be fulfilling for you. Okay. So I had a very traumatic story that occurred in my life that relates to this card. I got married when I was very young, when I was 19 years old, and I married a man that had some very deeply rooted mental health problems, some deep depression and things of that nature. Okay. And this was very easy for me to get into, even though um, the mental health issues that he had presented in ways that were actually dangerous for the both of us. And because I was raised in a home where there were also mental health issues, depression, abuse, and abuse of all kinds, physical abuse, emotional abuse, some sexual abuse, all of these type of things. So being involved with someone who was unstable and who eventually became abusive was not far from what I experienced in my home. Okay, so if you've been following my channel for any period of time, you've heard me talk about this some before. But I really want to get a bit deeper into it because this is so common among starseeds and awakening world healers. And why is that, you may be asking? Because oftentimes starseeds and awakening world healers are born into families where there is a lot of abuse, rejection, manipulation, abandonment, things of that nature. Okay, starseeds often um, grow up feeling like they are the only one like them that they know, feeling quite isolated and abandoned. And when that happens to you at a young age, then it's very likely that you are going to be drawn to relationships that feel the same way because that those feelings of abandonment or rejection, abuse, isolation, all these things are very much hardwired into your definition of love. So you may have had parents or siblings or extended family even that you just felt like did not understand you, did not see you, did not embrace you. So that is very much a cause of being drawn to these types of scenarios. So in my case, by the time I was 26, this relationship had gone through all types of different formations, different changes, very tragic things that happened between us. I was afraid, afraid of my husband at that time, and he had become so depressed, so ill that he was often threatening to hurt me and to kill me and to take his own life, which he eventually did when I was 26 years old. So this has been on my mind a lot lately, you guys, because January 5th was the anniversary of his death, and February 17th was his birthday. So one thing that's been happening for me as I continue to dig through the layers of that template that was deeply, deeply ingrained in me from childhood, from birth even. Um, One thing that continues to happen for me is that at different times in my life, these the memories come up, and I can see where I am shedding those old patterns, those old habits of choosing partners, choosing friendships, choosing even relationships in my family in which I'm expected to be silent, or friendships or relationships in which I'm not seen, friendships or relationships in which there is some level of abandonment or rejection. And though I've done so much work on this, so much work on this, I still found that this year, because we are in this final shedding, as we close out the year of the snake, there were lots and lots of emotions that come up. Some of it was sadness, some of it was grief, some of it was anger. And I found myself wanting to um, increase my regimen of things that I do for self love. So we've had a lot of snow where I live. And during that time, we had a lot of snow on the ground and things were just, so quiet and we're forced to be in the house. I found myself wanting to do more things to take care of myself. And one of those things I did was eating really well. So as I ate really, really well, like ate all my favorite stuff and enjoyed that, I found myself thinking about the good things that I shared with my husband. And one of those things was food. He was a chef and he loved to feed me. Okay. So you guys may be noticing that as I'm talking about the very traumatic things that I went through with my husband, I'm also allowing myself to remember the good things that were true and that were good. And that is very, very important for breaking this pattern, for dismantling this template of tragic love. Why is that? Because one of the things that we tend to do when a relationship ends is to tell ourselves that, oh, the love was never real. That person never cared about me, or I never cared about them. Everything was always terrible. And that's simply not true. There's always something in the beginning that caused you to fall in love with this person, right? And if you sit around and tell yourself that it was always horrible, it was always awful, there was never anything good about that person, how do you then trust yourself later when you fall in love again or when you meet someone that intrigues you, that interests you, right? So it's very important to be honest with yourself about the things that attracted you to that person originally, as well as being honest about the things that went wrong in the relationship and the role that you played in that. Okay. So, one of the things that I, I worked on during this time when there was all this snow on the ground and everything was quiet and still and I was isolated was to be honest with myself about the fact that I knew from the beginning that something wasn't quite right in that relationship. And as a matter of fact, when I first met him, I remember the day that I met him, I my friend had introduced us, and I literally, this was a long time ago, y'all, early 2000s, maybe 1999, probably when I met him. And so back then, you would write your number down on a piece of paper. It wasn't like today when you just put your information in somebody's phone. And I literally, as we drove off, I balled up his number and threw it out the window. And I was like, oh, girl, no, he is not the one for me. I can't believe you introduced me to him. Right. But later, when I ran into him again, I let him convince me to give him a chance. When really my gut had already told me, no, this is not the right person. Okay. Betty Valentine says hello. Hey, Betty. Brooklyn Sister says hello. Hi. You guys, if you want to participate in this conversation, you want to jump in, if you have comments or questions about it, please do. This is an open conversation. But in the beginning, I can remember having a feeling that this was not the right person for me, right? But I decided later to give it a chance because he was very, very doting on me. Okay, very, very much. Oh, I just love you. I just want to be with you. I have to have you. And I was going through a really rough time in my life. I was very young and had just left my my mother's home and was just young and scared, you know. And he stepped in and started doing things to take care of me. And I allowed that to convince me to give him a chance and to be with him. So that's something that I have to take responsibility for, going against my gut in the very beginning, um, and kind of going along with it. And I did eventually fall in love with him, but it was against my better judgment, against that original gut instinct that no, this is not going to be good for me. Okay, so um, that's something that, I have to be honest about within myself. Also, there was a lot of toxic, like arguing and power struggles and things like that were a dynamic in our relationship. And I chose to be with him because um, part of it was that I knew that I would always have like an upper hand in this relationship because of how he was emotionally, right? There was a certain like codependence that kind of came about between us. And we would argue and fuss and fight. And I was, like I said, I was very young. And at that point in my life, that was exciting. I had a boyfriend before that I never argued with. And I got bored with him. Check that out. I got really bored, with him, because we didn't have that toxicity and that power struggle dynamic in our relationship. And he was really good to me too, but I got bored with him. So at that time, I was the type of young lady that would get bored if there wasn't enough drama in the relationship. Little did I know there was plenty of drama to come, right? And more than what I could possibly handle. But once again, like I said, there was lots of trauma and things like that in my household growing up. So when I got with this person that I ended up marrying only a year after we met, about a year to a year and a half after we met, there was plenty of drama to keep me engaged. And energetically, we were matching one another. There was a match within our field because he had a lot of trauma growing up as well. A lot of trauma in his household, a lot of trauma in his young life. Okay, I had lost a parent from my daily life due to divorce, and he had lost a parent to death around that same age. Okay, so we both had this imprint of tragedy, this imprint of rejection and abandonment, and all of those things that had left this energetic imprint in our biomagnetic fields and caused us to really be drawn to each other very, very intensely. Okay, so this type of tragic love template that we're talking about today is a root chakra imbalance. It is a root chakra balance. Root chakra blockage that is it can be very difficult to balance out, to undo, to clear. Okay. But we're going to talk about a little bit more about how you can work on this if you find yourself experiencing that. And it could be, that you're choosing relationships that are toxic. You're choosing partners that you're not really going to fall deeply in love with, or that cannot emotionally fulfill you, or that in some way really is gonna cause the relationship to come to an end. But you have this deep belief within you that it's gonna come to an end anyway, right? So this is very, very common, but um, it's something that you can work through. Okay, so if this sounds familiar to you, if this resonates, hit that like button. Go ahead and share this with a friend, and make sure you subscribe and turn on your notifications so you can get more content like this. And thank you, Zena Electra, for that reminder. Hit the like button, guys. So there are journal prompts in the booklet as well that comes along with the Oracle card deck. This is the card, Tragic Love. I'm going to be publishing this deck this year. It goes along with my class, 7 Centers of Attraction. Okay. So the first journal prompt is, were you programmed for tragic love? And if so, how? Okay. You want to think about things that are, that have happened in your early childhood that may have caused you to have certain types of trauma, such as abandonment, rejection, manipulation, isolation, and things of that nature, hardwired into your definition of love. So this would be things that you experienced with your family of origin. That's your parents, your siblings, people that were, in your household growing up, or that were a part of your daily life. Okay. So, were you programmed for tragic love, and if so, how? That's the first journal prompt. Okay. So, how do your adult relationships mirror your family of origin? How do your adult relationships mirror your family of origin? If you had a very toxic relationship with your mom, and this could be toxic in a way that maybe that's like very, very obvious, or it could just be like, I never felt like my mother accepted me or loved me or really saw me, or accepted me for who I was. If you lost a parent, whether it was because they died, or they just were suddenly no longer a part of your daily life. This happens a lot of times when your parents, if your parents divorce, you know you may suddenly find that, okay, I'm not as close to one of my parents as I used to be when we all lived in the same household. That's very, very common. Okay. This can also happen if you suddenly had a younger sibling, and all of a sudden all the attention is going to that other sibling, and you feel abandoned by that. Okay. So just dig deep. Think about that. What things could have happened that programmed you for tragic love, and how do your adult relationships mirror that? Zena Electra says, congratulations. Thank you, Zena. I'm very excited about publishing my Oracle card deck this year. It's going to be awesome. So how do your adult relationships mirror your family of origin? Do you tend to choose relationships that are not fulfilling for you? Are you choosing people that maybe, are distant in some kind of way? Maybe they physically live distant, or maybe they're emotionally distant. Maybe you're always feeling like that person really doesn't see you, does not fulfill you emotionally, or a person that has a pattern of leaving when there's a disagreement. If there's, a difficult discussion to be had, and they abandon you in that moment. They could be physically leaving, they could be hanging up the phone, they could be shutting down and refusing to discuss things that you guys really need to talk about. Someone that just isn't dedicated to you, is not committed to the relationship, who does not prioritize you. There are so many different forms that this can take, but just sit down and think about, what is the pattern in your relationships that continues to come up for you. Okay. Another journal prompt: what is the significance of the number? How does the significance of the number 7 apply to this revelation? Okay, so we said the number 7 represents transformation, transmutation, big picture, allegory. And allegory, if you're not familiar with that term, is the lesson that a story teaches. Seven also represents seeing God in all things. Okay, so is there a theme represented by the number seven that applies to this revelation, this aha moment, this epiphany that you're having about this pattern in your relationships? Next, journal prompt. Review the root chakra energy pairing for a balance. Okay, so within the Oracle deck, there will be information, there will be tips on how to pair certain chakras together to heal blockages or begin to clear blockages. So the root chakra card pairs with the crown chakra. Okay, the root chakra pairs very well with the crown chakra. Okay, and our crown chakra represents divine guidance, right? In the way that God Creator Source exemplifies love for us and guides us and informs us of who we really are, that we are an exemplification of God, right? So when we are dealing with issues that are root chakra issues, which are often issues of scarcity. So in this case, this would be a scarcity of love, a belief that, you know, love really can't turn out well. It can't really be fulfilling. It's always going to end tragically. It is helpful to, excuse me, it's helpful to reflect on your divine guidance and the way that God Creator Source is always there for you and will not leave your side, will always guide you if you just stop and ask for that guidance and believe that it's going to come through for you and be willing to follow that guidance. Like, think about how I'm saying, I initially, I knew I knew that relationship was not the right relationship for me. But because I was going through a very hard time, I was feeling very abandoned, by my family, by my parents. I had left my mom's home under circumstances that were much less than ideal. And I was feeling like love was something very scarce in my life. I wasn't feeling safe. I wasn't provided for in that situation. So instead of following my gut, I decided to go along with this relationship that seemed to provide um, those things. And there was he was a good provider in the physical, right? He would, help me out. And, I ended up moving in with him and I didn't want for anything physically. I didn't have to work. I didn't have to do anything. He took care of me, but he also very much tormented me emotionally and mentally. So I was compromising myself in that way to get that affection, the provision to be taken care of, which was something that, I have to take responsibility for that. I have to be honest with myself about that, you know? That's a way in which I compromised myself. Because I was in a situation, right? And I had not yet learned to just depend on my divine guidance, and to allow that to inform me in my decision making, right? So, how can a crown chakra perspective on love help reverse this generational curse? And this is a form of a generational curse, okay? Something that you experience within your family of origin that continues to affect you into your adulthood, okay? So, a little hint there that goes along with that question is, how does God Creator Source exemplify love for creation, right? Giving us everything that we need, right? Without a need for us to compromise ourselves. And what would happen if you make that example your new definition of love? What if you decided to provide for yourself in the same way that God Creator Source provides for you, and to pay strict attention to your own emotional needs, right? What if you just decided to take a period of time in which you deep dive into that love, that guidance that comes from within? Okay, so I just want to share this with you guys. If you have any questions or comments, now is the time before we end our talk for tonight. I just want to take time to share this card with you. Again, Tragic Love. This is from my Seven Centers of Attraction Oracle deck that trying to see if I can get this good picture of this for you guys. It's going to be published this year. And also, I want to also mention that if you like this type of content, if you like spiritual content, of course, like, subscribe, turn on your notifications for this channel, but also check out the Elemental Soul. There is a YouTube channel for the Elemental Soul, and there's also an app that you can download. The name of the app is the Elemental Soul, and you can find a lot more of this type of content there. Lots of guided journeys that will help you as you begin to awaken as a world healer, as a star seed, and that will help you upon your journey. Nafis says hi. Hi, Nafis. All right, I'm not seeing any questions come through, but so I'm gonna go ahead and end for tonight, you guys. But thank you so much for being a part of this conversation, and I encourage you to do some journaling and consider: do you have this pattern of tragic love in your life? And do you have some journaling, some digging in to do? Will Barkath call me today? I'm not certain about that, Nafis. I'm not really getting any, I'm not getting an answer to that question to come up in my spirit today. What is coming up for me is what's making Barkath come up in your mind during a conversation about tragic love. Is there something there to dig into for you? Okay, so I'm gonna encourage you, if you haven't been on here the whole time, to go back and watch this video and ask yourself, is your spirit calling your attention to any tragic or toxic patterns within that relationship? Okay, because typically in a relationship where there is an equal energy exchange, it would be perfectly fine for you to call them if they don't call you. You know, is there something there in this relationship that you're choosing that's not quite fulfilling for you? Okay, I hope that's not the case, but it could be. Okay, chances are you've tuned in to this conversation for a reason, and you're being guided. Your subconscious mind is guiding you to some healing opportunities. Okay, so thank you guys so much for joining this conversation, and I will see you next time on Attracting Love Energy. Peace.